My name is Olivia, and here's the story that unfolded. That night, David lifted my leg onto his lap and gently removed my socks as if revealing something delicate and precious. A chill coursed through my body. I observed his fingers as they glided deliberate, unhurried, as if time itself had paused to bear witness. He softly applied pressure around the inflamed area, his thumbs lingering on the spots that evoked a sense of a tense, uneasy sensation lingered in the air. "Your skin is so soft," he murmured, avoiding my gaze as if there were unspoken truths lingering between us. I took a moment to regain my composure. Those words ought to have remained unspoken. Then he gazed at me, his eyes deeper and more piercing than before. "I understand." We lingered in quietude, the atmosphere heavy with unspoken words. The rain pounded on the windows, echoing the frantic rhythm of my heart. His hand lingered on my leg, firm and unwavering, sending shivers coursing through me. A shiver travels down my spine. I didn't experience that either. Honestly, if someone had said to me a year ago that I'd find myself attracted to my stepdad, I would have laughed at how absurd that seemed. To all my devoted supporters, your unwavering encouragement means the world to me. I appreciate your support as you watch each video I create. Honestly, a year ago, if someone had told me I'd have feelings for my stepdad, I would have found it completely repulsive. Yet existence has an uncanny ability to astonish you. The power to reshape the boundaries you believed were unchangeable. It seeps in gradually, piece by piece. It enters softly, restless, and subdued, akin to a weighty sensation lingering in the atmosphere. That was the moment everything began for David and me. At the age of 17, my life took a turn when my mother chose to marry him. At that time, he hardly registered on my awareness. He exuded a serene, mature aura. At dinner, he'd sit there with his arms crossed, a silent sentinel, speaking only when necessary, and each word seemed heavy with unexpressed thoughts. Mass. He was never my father. He never referred to me in that way. We hardly knew one another, merely coexisting in the same space, each moment filled with unspoken words. All aspects of my life shifted when I reached the age of 22. Mom's promotion to regional director at her company was a significant milestone, as if she had fully dedicated herself to her job, leaving little room for anything else. She departed before the first light and returned well after nightfall. At times, her absence stretched on, feeling like an eternity. David was utterly isolated, burdened by the profound heaviness of solitude enveloping him. Initially, it appeared to be yet another adjustment to navigate. At times, I would prepare dinner and he would be adamant about taking care of the cleanup afterward. In the evenings, we would gather together, the TV casting a soft glow in the dimness, an unspoken tension lingering in the air between us. The weight of our silence was palpable, brimming with unspoken emotions that neither of us had the courage to articulate, strangely soothing, yet disquieting. Then he began making subtle remarks such as, "You're becoming a woman now." That one completely took me by surprise. I dismissed it, thinking it was merely a fatherly quirk, despite the strange sensation it stirred within me. Yet I would be dishonest if I claimed it didn't evoke something profound and unsettling. I had always been aware of my allure, my curves drawing attention, my long legs captivating gazes, that irresistible magnetism. Yet when it originated from him, it resonated within me in a profound way. Perilous. The tale was only beginning to unfold. "You resemble your mother from her youth remarkably well." He spoke those words, his gaze fixed on me as I gathered my hair into a ponytail. A shiver coursed through me as I sensed his gaze piercing the darkness from the space behind the couch. "Yet you possess something she can only dream of." I ought to have spoken up, should have simply turned around and walked away. Yet I managed to put on a smile. That's when I allowed the silence to speak for itself. One afternoon, I returned from the gym clad only in a sports bra and leggings, the atmosphere thick with unspoken words. Stress. I never imagined he would show up here. As I strolled by the living room, I caught sight of him settled in the recliner, remote firmly in hand, gaze fixed on the dancing light of the screen. At least that was my assumption. A shiver coursed through me as I sensed his gaze upon me even before our eyes locked. It was more than a mere cursory look out of courtesy. This was intentional, measured, and weighty. His gaze gradually moved from my chest to my stomach. All the more. A shiver coursed through me. I stood still, unable to move. "You're sweating," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "Yeah," I murmured, wrapping my arms around myself securely. "I just finished a run." He remained completely still, his gaze fixed on me. "You're really strong." I sprinted to my room, locked the door, and stared at my reflection in the mirror, my heart racing wildly. My thoughts were a whirlwind, colliding and intertwining in a chaotic dance. A surge of immediacy. Is it possible that actually occurred? Or was it merely a figment of my imagination? As dawn broke, clarity emerged. Emerging from the warm embrace of the shower, the towel clung to my skin, a delicate barrier against the world beyond. My hair was drenched and weighed down, sticking to me, as I strolled down the shadowy corridor, softly humming, the atmosphere charged with tension as I approached my room. He walked through the hallway, the tension palpable in the air. The atmosphere was heavy. He ought to have turned his gaze, yet he remained fixed. His gaze fell to my chest, lingered on my thighs, then returned to mine with an intense fervor. I stood still, the moment elongating as if it were pausing in anticipation. In that fleeting moment, everything transformed. I witnessed a depth in him that was unfamiliar, an overwhelming desire, and a profound ache of yearning. Fear faded from my grasp. A surge of longing enveloped me. Sunday night hung in the air, dense and weighty. The rain descended softly, enveloping the world in a serene melancholy. The sort of silence that renders even the tiniest things significantly weightier than they ought to be. Fresh from the shower, I descended the stairs in my socks. Every step was a meticulous dance as I gazed at my phone, oblivious to the tempest gathering just out of sight. Perhaps I acted with a lack of caution. Perhaps I wished to be. Perhaps. I stumbled. There was an absence of drama, merely silence. Silence remains unbroken. I let out a sharp gasp as my ankle twisted, the world swirling around me as I clumsily hit the last steps. The phone crashed to the ground, producing a sharp sound that reverberated through the silence. I recoiled, clutching the banister, firmly striving to maintain my equilibrium. Moments later, he appeared, David, emerging from the living room as if he had been lurking in the shadows for this very moment. "Hold on, are you all right?" He hurried over, concern etched across his features. "I believe I may have twisted it," I murmured, my voice trembling with uncertainty. He knelt before me, his fingers encircling my ankle with a gentle yet firm grip, while his other hand found its place on my thigh, creating an electric tension in the air between us. His touch was warm and strong, yet gentle, as if he were quietly assuring me that everything would be all right despite the chaos. Our gazes locked, an unspoken tension rising between us. "I'll take a look at it," he stated decisively. His voice carried a subtle urgency. "Everything's fine. Allow me to assist," he said, his voice soft and unsettlingly serene. He guided me to the couch, the air between us heavy with unspoken words. I allowed him to take charge. He lifted my leg onto his lap and gently peeled off my socks, as if he were unveiling something delicate and precious. A captivating thrill coursed through my skin. I observed his fingers in motion, each one deliberate, exact, resembling a serene ballet. It was excruciatingly slow, as if time itself were pausing in anticipation. He gently pressed on the swollen area, his thumbs gliding over sensitive spots that would have been wiser left alone. "Your skin's so soft," he murmured, glancing aside, the unspoken words lingering heavily in the air between us. I took a deep breath. It would be wise to reconsider that statement. Then he gazed directly at me, his eyes deeper and more intense than before. "I understand." The stillness enveloped the room while the rain pounded relentlessly against the windows. The unyielding rhythm, synchronized with the hurried thump of my heart. His hand remained steadfast on my leg, and I found myself completely still. That night I remained in my room, my heart pounding as I relived each moment in my thoughts. Each detail was vivid and eerie, the sensation, the gaze, the murmurs. Everything seemed deliberate. Each moment bore an intense, inescapable burden. After that moment, everything began to unravel. 2 days later, a knock shattered the stillness of the night, piercing the silence. At approximately 10 p.m., I found myself reclining in bed with my leg elevated. The laptop screen illuminated and shimmered before me, drawing me into a taut, ambiguous realm. He entered, balancing a substantial tray laden with tea, an ice pack, and a bottle of lotion, each item quietly reflecting the underlying tension in the air. "You really shouldn't be walking on it yet," he said, his voice laced with concern as he placed the tray down, his words lingering in the atmosphere. I felt compelled to share this with someone. "You." He perched on the edge of the bed, the blanket trembling in his grasp as he extended his hand towards my foot. I paused. Yet again, I allowed him to proceed. The lotion embraced my skin, enveloping it in a soothing warmth. His hands were warm as well, gentle yet firm, igniting a faint connection in the atmosphere. The manner in which he playfully provoked her seemed entirely inappropriate for a stepfather. Not with that piercing gaze slicing through the stillness. Not with that gentle, intentional force. "You feel incredible beneath my fingertips," he murmured, his tone thick with emotion, and I gasped softly. "David." He leaned in the air, thick with unspoken words. Just say the word, and everything stops. Yet I remained silent. He pressed his lips to my knee with a tender caress, a soft yet charged sensation that coursed through me like a spark. Then my thigh tightened, a wave of intensity surging within me. In that fleeting instant, I surrendered to an overwhelming sensation that was impossible to deny. Comprehension. A blend of yearning and uncertainty, perhaps a combination of the two. As I allowed him to draw near, I shut my eyes and surrendered to the moment, the silence thick with unspoken words. Following that night, we shattered every boundary. There was no way to go back. David maintained his expression, and truthfully so did I. It mirrored his chill. The descent was gradual and excruciating, leading inevitably to the climax that had been brewing for months. Well, it simply wasn't any longer. It existed solely within the confines of my mind. It was a visceral, powerful blend of skin and flame, intertwined with silent mysteries that lingered in the darkness. The following morning, my mom pressed a quick kiss on my cheek, a fleeting tender gesture before hurrying off to work, leaving an emptiness in its wake. She remained oblivious to the fact that I had already confided my secrets to the one person she trusted above all, revealing the night's shadows to him while she was entirely in the dark. I ought to have felt remorse. It struck me deeply, more than I could bear. At that moment, I found myself utterly engulfed by the whirlwind of events that had just unfolded. David steered clear of me for the majority of the day. Not entirely, but there was certainly a distance between us, as if he was questioning whether I felt any remorse about it. That night, as I moved past him in the shadowy hallway, he leaned in and whispered, "We shouldn't talk out here." His voice carried a weight filled with unspoken thoughts and emotions. That was the guideline we had to adhere to, just one among countless others. When she was present, we behaved as if we were merely housemates. Each word carried a weight of hidden emotions and lingering conflicts. A fleeting glance, a subtle grin brimming with unspoken words. Yet as soon as she left, even if it was just a quick trip to the store, we would unravel. The smallest details exacerbated the situation, piercing the hurt even further. He would intentionally glide by me in the kitchen, igniting a thick, unspoken tension that hung in the air. She murmured secrets into the atmosphere, her voice scarcely louder than a sigh. Yet the gap that separated us seemed vast. Once, as I leaned down to retrieve something from the fridge, his hand grazed my lower back, steady and intentional, and it sent a shiver coursing through me. He silently mouthed later before turning away, leaving a weighty silence in his wake. That evening, once my mom had drifted off after a tiring day, he entered my room barefoot and shirtless, holding a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. The atmosphere was heavy with unvoiced strain. I bolted upright in bed, my heart racing. "This is insane," I murmured. "I understand," he murmured, the burden of it all palpable in his tone. "Yet I find it impossible to release my grip. I couldn't either." We shared a soft laugh. Then our lips met with an urgent longing that consumed us. We surrendered to one another once more, this time with a languid intensity, a profound yearning that seized me in a way I had never experienced before. He murmured my name as if it were a cherished mystery. He drew me near, his breath gentle and soothing against my shoulder despite the turmoil swirling within him. "If your mom finds out," he said, his voice trembling with dread, "she'll never forgive us." That word, us, pierced my heart deeply. It was never just you. Those words lingered in the air, a harsh reality that cut deeper than any physical injury. It was always centered around our togetherness. We were always together, yet somehow I allowed myself to become vulnerable. I began to let my guard down, sending him hidden messages and sharing more of myself when we were at home. One evening, his joke had me in stitches at dinner. I noticed my mom's piercing gaze, her eyebrow arched as if silently critiquing me. "What's amusing?" she asked, a slight smile playing at the corner of her mouth, as if there was something deeper lurking beneath the surface. I fell silent, my face flushed with unspoken thoughts. Her gaze flickered momentarily, between us clinging on just a bit too long. Eventually, she moved in closer, murmuring, "Has David mentioned anything strange to you recently?" I deceived her without a hint of remorse. "Not at all. Why do you ask?" She shrugged, a swift gesture that conveyed much, creating an odd tension lingering between us. I was at a loss for words. There was an unsettling sensation in the air. I let out a forced laugh, planted a quick kiss on her cheek, and made my way back to my room. The burden of it all. Unspoken thoughts lingered in the atmosphere, yet my heart remained uneasy. The weight of guilt continued to accumulate, resonating profoundly within my thoughts. Yet I found myself unable to restrain my impulses, and he was equally powerless to do so. The bleakest hour arrived as we crossed that threshold in her bed. She had left for the weekend on a company retreat brimming with secrets and unexpressed tension. David and I simply had to let it out. We moved swiftly as the sun dipped below the horizon, claiming her bed, her pillows, her blankets, enveloping ourselves in the remnants of her essence. The entire situation was convoluted and chaotic. Yet we found ourselves unable to turn our gaze elsewhere. It felt as though temptation ensnared us both, with shame beginning to seep in only after the tumult had subsided. As the echoes of the moment faded, I found myself lying there gazing at the ceiling, her scent lingering on the sheets beneath me. "I hate myself," I murmured, the words weighing heavily in the stillness. "No, you don't," he said, his voice heavy with The atmosphere was charged with tension. You despise how it draws you in with its captivating allure." He pressed his lips to my shoulder once more, igniting a shiver that coursed through my body. At that time, I had no idea that fleeting instant would linger in my thoughts, an enduring echo that refused to fade. The truth possesses an uncanny ability to emerge regardless of the efforts made to conceal it. On that Monday night, the very fabric of our understanding began to unravel. Everything began to unravel. Mom arrived home sooner than she typically does. She entered softly reminiscent of her former self, her keys absent the familiar jingle substituted by a profound stillness. In the kitchen, I stood barefoot, draped in one of David's shirts. It had the perfect length to appear innocent, yet was brief enough that a closer inspection could reveal something deeper. She observed immediately. "Is that really his shirt?" she inquired nonchalantly, letting her purse fall onto the counter with a thump that echoed more than it should have. Quietude. I halted, sensing the moment stretch out far too long. "It seems laundry day has finally arrived," I murmured. The air was thick with unspoken words as I turned away from her. I swiftly snatched up anything that was remotely clean. She remained silent, the stillness enveloping us like a taut string, her quiet conveying more than any words could express. She gazed directly at me, as if attempting to decipher a jumbled enigma. Her eyes brimmed with unvoiced inquiries, ones she was unaware she clutched so fiercely, each weighing heavily on her heart. Then arose the question that appeared to shatter everything into pieces. "Did you sleep in the same bed as him?" The room fell utterly silent, heavy like a shroud. The very hum of the fridge appeared to fade away. My throat constricted, and a weighty sensation sank deep within me. "What's happening?" I inquired, and she responded, her voice trembling with uncertainty. "If you've been revealing my—" In my husband's bed, every truth lay bare before us. Not after all that we've experienced together. Not with her gaze piercing right through me like that. "Yeah," I murmured, the atmosphere thick with unspoken words. It all began months ago, resembling a subtle indication of something ominous lurking beneath the surface. I readied myself for turmoil, shouting objects flying a sudden strike, anything to shatter the stillness. Yet her suffering was even more profound. She withdrew slowly and with great difficulty. She retreated as if I were a contagion, something to fear and avoid at all costs. "You were my daughter," she said, her voice trembling with deep emotion. "I placed my trust in you." "This was never my desire," I replied. "You didn't stop it." She interrupted, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, yet blazing with intense emotion. "You accepted it. You relished every moment." She averted her gaze swiftly and made her way to the living room. Her footsteps gentle, pausing by the window, lost in contemplation. He hurries to collect his belongings, each item a poignant reminder of what he is on the verge of abandoning. I want him gone from this place. However, you have the option to leave this evening. I gulped down my shame, sharp and profound, slicing straight through me. "Where will I find myself?" She slightly tilted her head, her expression enigmatic. "That burden, it no longer belongs to me to bear." I hurriedly packed only a handful of clothes, my charger, and a single pair of trainers. I hurriedly zipped up my bag. David descended the stairs, each step laden with unvoiced anxiety. "She knows," I stated, my tone icy and resolute. He appeared weary, as if life had drained him far too quickly, as though the burden of our actions had finally caught up with him. "I never meant to hurt her," he whispered, his voice trembling with remorse. "So how did we end up here?" The room was enveloped in silence, and he remained mute. I was the one who departed first. The stillness enveloped the room, devoid of embraces or farewells. On a frigid night within a dilapidated house, a profound silence enveloped the atmosphere, extending infinitely. I made the decision to move in with a friend. Holding on to the possibility of a new beginning, I secured a new job, striving to piece together a version of myself that I could finally accept. David's fingers danced across his phone, dispatching a flurry of messages thick with unvoiced tension. I remained silent. I simply couldn't bring myself to do it. Not everything. Deceit leads to violence or demise. They bear a burden that can utterly overwhelm you. What we experienced wasn't love. We were merely acting as if we desired one another, concealing the delicate nature of our true selves. Self-centeredness disguised as intimacy. Yet that feeling will always remain etched in my memory. How effortlessly the lines between right and wrong could fade when someone gazed at you as if you were the sole person in existence. And I will forever cherish the instant when that illusion shattered. When the truth finally strikes. Once the truth is revealed, there's no going back. Continue onwards, burdened by the remnants of all that you have forsaken. Can you envision being trapped in a moment like this? What was your next step? Subscribe to this channel and activate notifications to immerse yourself in captivating tales that will hold your attention.